Have you ever noticed how painted images are all around us? That's where I come in. I'm a curator at an art gallery. I choose paintings for people to look at, and I'm on a mission to show you why looking is worth it, to show you why painting matters. It can challenge you, play with you, and even lift your soul. Come with me on this journey through art and you'll see the world through new eyes. For centuries, paintings were made to look like the real world. But these days, it's as if anything goes. The word art usually makes us think of paintings hanging on walls. And the word painting usually makes us think of canvases inside frames. But in the last 100 years, painting has shrugged off its old formats. It's belly flopped right off the wall, and it's begun to flirt with other art forms. And this raises a question. How are you meant to look at a painting when it doesn't look like a traditional painting at all? One of the things painting did traditionally was show how the real world looked. Careful renditions of familiar things, safely contained inside frames. But in the 20th century, artists broke away from the old techniques and gave painting an astonishing shake-up. They started trying out new materials and new formats. Shockwaves of change rolled through the world of painting. And the big reason artists changed the way they painted was because the world had changed. The 20th century, like no time before, was marked by an explosion of images. Films and newsreels brought distant worlds and global events to life. Newspapers and magazines brought pictures of the world to everyone's doorstep every day. Everyone seemed to have jumped on the image bandwagon. Fashion, music, and especially advertising. The advent of television took it one step further, streaming moving pictures straight into everyone's living room. Painting was outgunned by a barrage of new images. With other people doing the old job of showing how the world looked, painters suddenly found themselves confronting some basic questions. Like, what's paint for? And what is a painting? To stay alive, painting has to find new ways of offering more than just a picture of the real world. The century's most memorable answer came from American Jackson Pollock when he laid vast, unframed swathes of canvas on the floor.
Having the canvas on the floor, I feel nearer, more a part of the painting.
Pollock didn't just ditch the easel, he found a new way to apply paint, letting it fall from a brush or a stick as he moved over and around the canvas. The result was not a picture of something, not an illustration. With his pours and splatters, Pollock wasn't copying nature, but trying to channel something of its swirling energy. The painting was a thing in itself, a physical experience. Pollock set in motion a new idea of the artist as a risk-taker, an improviser, someone who discovers where they're going as they go. The painter's studio was no longer a place of easels and oils, of rules and regulations. It had become a test site, an art laboratory, a theatre for extreme experiments. French artist Yves Klein threw traditional tools out the window altogether in this work, Anthropometry. Naked women, cast in the role of brushes, drag each other across the canvas, leaving behind ghostly imprints of blue paint. As cameras take it all in, Klein with his suit and tie is the artist as director, choreographing a painting in progress. In the 1960s, new ways of painting were literally exploding into view. Niki de Saint-Phal used a gun instead of a brush to paint. Taking aim at pure white surfaces, Saint-Phal pulls the trigger and literally makes art bleed. It's creation and destruction all at the same time. And suddenly, it was open season for a whole new generation of experimenters. Artists picked up paint by the tinful and ran with it in unexpected directions. Australian Guy Benfield literally pours it on in his performances, using his head as a paintbrush to drag a gruesome streak of red down a gallery wall, or donning caftan and wig to create a gloriously messy send-up of the creative process. If you hunt a bit, you'll find painting thriving in all kinds of unlikely places. It's there in video and performance art. And it's even flourishing in places usually claimed by other traditional art forms. Here in New Zealand, artist Rowan Wellens is claiming some serious space for paint in a world usually dominated by wood, bronze and steel, the world of sculpture. There's only one response: what on earth? This massive paintball looks like it's fallen here from another planet. Actually, it looks like it is a planet made of paint. You can see the layers of paint down here and in here, and especially up here, where the artist has cut through the surface, revealing craters of colour. It's like the inner geology of an art asteroid. Rowan wants us to see painting, the most familiar art form round, as something strange, unexpected, wonderfully alien. And surely this must be one of those aliens. Tony Owsler sends painting even further into strange territory with his creation Spectre, a blobby white sculpture covered in blinking eyes that are themselves covered in swipes of lurid paint. Owsler merges the old art of painting with the new art of video to create an art monster, a blinking paint thing. Painting today is well and truly out there. Artists have pulled it off the easel, dripped and dragged it, acted up with it, attacked it with new tools, and combined it with new media. But if painting's mission is to go as far out as possible, doesn't it start to lose touch with the real world we live in? The world is a work in progress. It's open all hours and bursting with noise and chaos. So how is painting meant to capture all that? For centuries, the art of painting was known as the highest of the high arts, and that meant it hovered high above all this, above the noise and the scatter of everyday life. But the art of painting has received some of its biggest jolts of energy from artists who want to bring it back down to earth, who want painting to get real, to muck in, to join in on the energy of a world that's full to the brim with stuff and endlessly changing. Back in the 1900s, cubists like Picasso came up with a daringly direct answer. For them, getting real didn't mean just painting realistic scenes. It meant tearing out pieces of modern life and sticking them to canvas. Headlines, articles, illustrations, a new kind of art called collage. And what collage gave Picasso was a language of layers and collisions, a way to evoke the energy of a world that felt increasingly fractured. These days, collage might look tame, but it transformed painting into a place where pieces of the real world could live a second life. By the middle of the 20th century, painters are living as never before in a world of things, objects, products, consumables, and disposables. Bags of this stuff daily. And in some of the most startling paintings, all this stuff becomes the stuff of art. The flat surface of painting starts to jump and wriggle with bits of real life. In New York, Robert Rauschenberg saw a new role for the painter as a trash picker, someone who finds new uses for the stuff the world thinks it has no use for. In his work Bed, he turned his own worn-out quilt and pillows into a canvas oozing with colour. The mess of oil paint hints this might have been the scene of a horrific massacre or lurid orgy. Rauschenberg brought art, life and paint together in a new and sticky romance. And here in New Zealand, no one's taken up that romance, colliding art and life as gleefully as Don Driver. You can see Driver as a landscape artist, piecing together bits and pieces of country life. Or a hellraiser, ripping into fields of colour with sharp and spiky stuff. Or a comedian, using paint to turn common objects seedy and strange. But what matters most in his art is surprise. Driver is New Zealand art's resident transformer of society's spare parts. He's an artist who loves to throw bits and pieces of the world together. A paint pot, a piece of a packing crate, a CD, and release jolts of sheer surprise. And what gives his wall-based works their kick is the quarrel between the beauty of their colour and the brute reality of the things they're made from. Including broken and lowly things in paintings is how artists get us wondering about the world we live in, what waste is and what's valuable, and what a painter's supposed to do. Whether bringing paint to the world or pieces of the world to paintings, listing the materials this Kiwi artist uses is a major task. Records, discarded plastic toys, an old saw, nails, bits of wildlife, old circuit boards. Welcome to the world of James Robinson. A place full of poor things, but incredibly rich in energy. Even the canvas underneath is a scavenged object. It's older paintings cut up and recombined like Frankenstein's monster. It's a big, shaggy, smelly, ill-mannered mongrel of a thing. And I mean that as a compliment. A Robinson painting is part battleground, part headspace, and part archaeological dig. Words and images compete for the right to speak amidst churning piles of stuff. So what is it that inspires an artist to turn one man's junk into works of art? Why do artists go scavenging in this world of used things rather than buying new?
I like things with sort of a trace of their own history to them. You know, sort of where energy's impacted physical material. So, you know, like the smashed plastic from a car accident is quite interesting because it's got a life, you know, it's been deconstructed by an event which has energy in it.
So you're sort of collecting histories and memories from the world at large?
Yeah, it's sort of collage, but for me, I kind of have to compost it down and mush it up to make it my own again. Like, just on the surface of a work, like, it's okay that it's a paint pot lid, but it's also a circle that could be read as a, you know, a sun or a moon up there. You know, it has to have two-way associations.
Where are those things coming from, and what prompts the decision to add something at a particular time?
Basically, I'm confused about identity. And painting is an arena to try and find self within the culture and the time of what we are made of. Because painting's only ever a record of the person that the society has constructed. I want to do something that's undeniable. Like, when real heavy stuff happens in your life, whether that's unemployment or alcoholism or the suicide of a friend, art is a way of kind of like trying to deal with yourself, you know, in a real palpable way. There's just something hardwired in us that, you know, we have to deal with things on a concrete level.
Personal turmoil seems to lurk behind James's paintings. It's hard not to wonder about the events that triggered them. But in the end, what matters in the painting is the feeling it triggers in us. And the key to that is right there on the surface, in the making of something, the texture of it, the paint.
Paint's a fluid, it's malleable, you can work over it. It's also constructive when it dries down. So I suppose it can become like mud, you know, the way mud cracks.
And when it dries, it has an extremely thick skin, doesn't it? You can throw a lot at it.
You can chip away at it archaeologically too. It's a bit of a scab.
So when someone steps into a show of James Robinson paintings, what do you want for them? How do you want them to respond?
I love a show. I love the moment where the manky becomes crystallised on the pristine wool. It's gorgeous. I really rely on the clean to offset my grunge aesthetic.
James's paintings are packed with pieces of our world, the world of products and consumer goods. But they've gained a new kind of energy, one that spans a personal history as well as the Earth's history. With their crusty surfaces, they're like fragments of a long-gone civilization. And by mounding the paintings with perishable things, he provides us with a vivid reminder that both life and art change and decay over time.
I want to make art that's about the world and my world, and if that's delusional or if that's a work in progress, so be it. But I've got to try with where I'm at now, and it is embarrassing, but it's hellishly fun as well, you know.
Look into painting in the last 100 years and you see it opening up, unleashing new techniques, liaising with other art forms, and unearthing unlikely treasures from the world. But if painting keeps on changing shape like this, how are we supposed to know we're still looking at a painting? When you look at the real world, paint is everywhere. It's there to direct traffic, waterproof weatherboards, brighten up shop fronts, make cars shine and beautify faces. Paint as a substance is a pure and simple thing. Most of us had our first brush with paint way back when we were kids. We used it to respond to the world long before we had the words. And the pleasure wasn't just about what happened on the piece of paper. It was about dipping the brush, handling the stuff, playing around for its own sweet sake. And some of the best grown-up artists around are experts in this kind of play. Looking at this artwork by Julia Morrison is like opening your first set of paintbrushes all over again. Morrison's taken lowly floor mops and transformed them into things of bizarre beauty, tweaking, perming and transforming each one so they bloom like the heads of extravagant flowers. But they also remind me of paintbrushes, a gigantic kit for a modern-day painter. Now, it's a kit far too large to use, of course, but I love the vision that it inspires. Imagine a new generation of flower painters heading out with brushes in hand to mop the world with colour. Like Australian Hassan Sami, who peels, pours and piles unused acrylic paint into things that look both delicious and hard to control, like a triple-decker ice cream on a summer day. And Katerina Grosser, who blasts paint into the world, filling it with colour that spreads across ceilings and balloons from the walls like strange fruit. Grosser's paintwork isn't something to look at, it's something you're in. These days, painting is an open house of materials, techniques and ideas. And no one's had as much fun ransacking the place as Judy Darragh. Hey there, Judy.
Oh, hi, Justin.
How you doing?
Come on in.
Judy brings something very welcome to the super serious world of art, a sense of humour. Nothing in her art looks much like a painting in the old sense, but paint itself is everywhere to be seen, oozing onto unexpected objects. What are these? They're like the pots that noodles come in.
Yeah, these are takeaway pots. I was using them, to mix paints, and then I started to stack them up and make this an idea of a three-dimensional painting. Because, painting is two-dimensional.
But in Judy's hands, paint is always coming off the flat surface and into our space, squeezed out like spaghetti, popping up like day-glow mushrooms. The mind goes back to primary school, art table, and also the magic shop. Spaces I loved as a kid. Can art be light and playful and serious as well?
Look, it's play. I come down here and I play, basically. It's like in my sandpit, and it's great. And I think that's all artists do. We play in our studio, we practice. And I think sometimes you get it right.
Why does play matter? What does it teach us?
Well, play opens you up to failure and experimenting. Through experimenting, you learn success and failure. I make failures all the time in here, and I love my failures, and I learn from my failures. And you have to understand your failures and recognise them so you can make work that's going to work.
Instead of creating brand new objects, Judy uses paint to give new life to existing ones, dunking, dribbling and spraying them.
I reckon paint is best left alone. You know, you just put it on and you let the paint do what it wants.
Because you seem to love the drip. You've got a real romance going with the drip. I have got a romance with the drip, and that came originally when I was just working on posters. And I was just pulling all these posters and just sort of dribbling white acrylic paint on these cars and hot rods and women and crocodiles and God knows what, and everyone kind of had a different story. You know, sometimes it looked like mother's milk, sometimes it looked like jism, sometimes it looked like the paint coming through the wall. You know, it had all these wonderful stories about paint. For Judy, painting isn't about total control. It's about letting things spill where they may and seeing where that leads her.
People believe that, you know, a great artist is a great painter. I don't know where these rules came from, but it's good to challenge those rules. And I mean, that's what artists do. We're meant here to take risks and challenge what, you know, came before us, in a sense.
Judy's handmade art is great fun, but the fun has some serious targets, like all the slick and smoothed out imagery that surrounds us every day.
I think what we see often today is a lot of the digital imagery is so clean. Our visual culture is full of this digitalised, cleaned up culture, photoshopped. And I think what we're missing is the touch of the hand, you know. I like the fact that you can look at something and see the glues blobbing out. You know, I like drawing back to attention the fact that, well, the glue does blob out, you know, and I'll just leave the glue blobbing out and the paint spilt all over it, you know. There's a reaction, I think, to that kind of visual culture which is so clean. I think as an artist that's what we're responsible to do, is make people look at things a wee bit differently, like skew if, you know, present another way of looking at something.
It's amazing what artists have done to painting in the last 100 years. They've unframed and flung it, smeared it, combined it with other art forms, fused it with the real world, and just let it be. They've changed painting in so many ways, you might wonder what still makes it a painting at all. What makes it painting is paint. This simple substance that has such a long history and so much competition today. But by pushing paint in unexpected directions, testing to see what it can take, these artists end up showing how much life there is in the old medium. The tradition of painting, like paint itself, is a live, liquid, flowing thing. All you have to do is dive into it.